You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your Security Plus certification journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. Risk management is the systematic process of identifying, analyzing, treating, and monitoring risks to ensure an organization achieves outcomes that are both secure and acceptable to leadership. It recognizes that risk can never be eliminated entirely. Rather, it must be managed in line with the organization's objectives and resources. A well-structured risk management program helps leaders make decisions about where to invest, which exposures to accept, and what safeguards to prioritize. Without risk management, decisions are made in isolation, often driven by urgency or personal opinion rather than evidence and strategy. For learners, think of risk management as planning a road trip. You cannot control the weather or every driver, but you can check the car, choose safe routes, and decide whether to drive during storms. It is about weighing likelihoods and impacts to make informed, deliberate choices rather than relying on chance. Core risk concepts provide the foundation for governance discussions. Risk is the potential for loss or harm. Likelihood refers to the probability of an event occurring. Impact describes the consequences if the event materializes. Threats are actors or events that can exploit weaknesses, while vulnerabilities are the weaknesses themselves. Controls are the safeguards put in place to reduce either likelihood or impact. These terms work together. A vulnerability like unpatched software can be exploited by a threat like a hacker, creating a risk of data loss. A control like patch management reduces the likelihood of exploitation. For learners, think of home safety. The risk is burglary, the vulnerability is an unlocked door, the threat is a thief, and the control is a sturdy lock. Understanding these elements clarifies how risks are formed and how they can be managed systematically. Risk appetite and risk tolerance are often confused but serve different purposes. Risk appetite reflects the general level of risk an organization is willing to accept in pursuit of its objectives, essentially its strategic posture. For instance, a financial services company may have a low appetite for regulatory risk but a higher appetite for operational innovation. Risk tolerance, on the other hand, defines acceptable variation around those appetite levels. It sets thresholds for how much deviation is allowed before escalation is required. Leadership expresses these through statements, policies, or metrics. For learners, think of dieting. Appetite is your general willingness to eat certain foods. Tolerance is how much deviation from your diet plan you will allow before deciding you've broken it. Organizations use appetite and tolerance to set boundaries for acceptable exposure, aligning decision-making with leadership's vision. The risk management lifecycle provides a structured process to handle risks consistently. It begins with identification, where risks are cataloged through assessments, incident analysis, or stakeholder input. Next comes assessment, evaluating likelihood and impact to prioritize focus. Treatment follows, where options are chosen to mitigate, transfer, accept, or avoid risks. Monitoring ensures ongoing visibility, as risks change over time with evolving technology and threats. Reporting provides transparency to leadership, and review closes the loop by refining the program based on lessons learned. This cycle is continuous, ensuring risks remain visible and actions remain aligned. For learners, think of health management. You identify symptoms, assess severity, choose treatments, monitor recovery, and review results with your doctor. Risk management is the organizational equivalent of this ongoing, cyclical care. Organizations face many types of risks, each intersecting with cybersecurity. Operational risks involve failures in processes, systems, or human error, such as outages or misconfigurations. Strategic risks emerge from poor decision-making, like adopting insecure platforms for speed to market. Financial risks stem from losses tied to fraud, theft, or inefficiency. Legal and compliance risks arise from violating regulations or contracts. Reputational risks follow when incidents damage customer trust or brand value. Cybersecurity intersects with all of these. A breach can disrupt operations, trigger regulatory fines, drain finances, and damage reputation simultaneously. For learners, imagine a ship at sea. Operational risks are leaks in the hull. Strategic risks are poor navigation choices. Financial risks are lost cargo. Legal risks are failing maritime rules. And reputational risks are the ship's public standing. Cybersecurity touches every part of that journey. Governance requires defined roles and responsibilities in risk management. Risk owners are responsible for managing specific risks within their domain, such as a finance leader owning fraud risks. Control owners manage safeguards that mitigate risks, such as IT staff overseeing patch management. Risk committees provide collective oversight, prioritizing issues and resolving conflicts. Stakeholders include business units, compliance teams, and executives who must provide input and alignment. Clear assignment of roles prevents duplication and ensures accountability. For learners, think of a classroom. A teacher owns the curriculum, students own their assignments, and administrators oversee policies. Everyone contributes differently, but must coordinate to succeed. Risk management roles follow the same principle: distinct responsibilities that together form a functioning program. Frameworks and standards guide organizations in building mature risk practices. NIST's Risk Management Framework, RMF, provides a structured process for integrating risk into system development and operations. ISO 31000 outlines principles and guidelines for risk management applicable across industries, emphasizing integration with organizational culture and decision-making. These frameworks provide common language, benchmarks, and practices, ensuring consistency and credibility. Organizations can adapt them to fit scale and industry. For learners, think of recipes in cooking. Each framework provides a recipe for effective risk management. The ingredients are policies, metrics, and roles, while the instructions are the steps of the life cycle. Following established frameworks prevents reinventing the wheel and ensures practices align with global standards. The risk register is a key artifact in governance programs. It serves as the canonical record of identified risks, their owners, likelihood and impact ratings, and planned treatments. By centralizing risks into one register, organizations gain visibility and ensure accountability. Registers are typically reviewed in governance committees, updated after incidents, and tied to dashboards for reporting. Without a register, risks remain scattered and unmanaged. For learners, think of a family budget spreadsheet. Instead of remembering bills, debts, and savings separately, everything is tracked in one place for clarity and planning. A risk register provides that same clarity, turning abstract concerns into a structured, actionable portfolio. Treatment options define how risks are addressed. Acceptance means the organization consciously chooses to live with the risk, often because it is low impact or unavoidable. Mitigation involves adding controls to reduce likelihood or impact. Transfer shifts the risk elsewhere, such as buying cyber insurance or outsourcing to a provider with contractual obligations. Avoidance eliminates the activity creating the risk entirely, such as discontinuing an insecure system. Each treatment option has trade-offs, and governance ensures decisions align with appetite and tolerance. For learners, think of how people approach weather risks. You might accept rain and bring an umbrella, mitigate by sealing your roof, transfer by buying insurance, or avoid by not scheduling outdoor events. Organizations use the same strategies, formalized in governance. Risk programs rely on performance indicators to demonstrate effectiveness. Common KPIs include the number of open risk items, trends in residual risk levels, and control effectiveness ratings from audits or tests. These indicators show whether risks are being reduced, whether controls are working, and where governance attention is needed. Without KPIs, leadership cannot judge progress or justify investments. For learners, think of a gym routine. You track weight lifted, miles run, or heart rate recovery to measure fitness. Risk KPIs provide the same function, proving that effort translates into tangible results. Continuous monitoring and reassessment are essential because risks are never static. New technologies, business initiatives, and external threats constantly shift the landscape. A risk considered low today may become critical tomorrow, while mitigated risks may resurface if controls degrade. Monitoring tools, periodic assessments, and governance reviews ensure risks remain visible and addressed. For learners, think of tending a garden. You cannot plant once and walk away. Weeds grow, weather changes, and conditions shift. Continuous monitoring ensures the garden thrives. In risk management, it ensures exposures remain controlled and aligned with business objectives. As a practical starter, learners can create a simple risk register template. The template should include risk description, owner, likelihood, high, medium, low, impact, high, medium, low, and treatment strategy. To populate, add 3 common cyber risks: phishing attacks, unpatched internet-facing servers, and third-party vendor failures. Assign each a risk owner, rate likelihood and impact, and select treatments. For example, phishing might be high likelihood, medium impact, mitigated with awareness training and technical controls. This exercise demonstrates how abstract threats become structured risks with accountability. For learners, it is like drawing up a shopping list. Instead of vague ideas, you put specific items with quantities and costs. The register turns vague fears into manageable, trackable risks. To be effective, risk conversations must always be aligned with business objectives. A security leader who frames a risk solely in technical terms, like "we have 200 unpatched servers," may struggle to get attention or funding. But if the same risk is presented as "our customer portal could be exploited, resulting in downtime and lost revenue," business leaders immediately understand the stakes. Governance committees and executives make decisions when risks are tied to financial outcomes, strategic goals, or compliance requirements. For learners, think of a doctor explaining health risks. If the doctor simply lists blood test numbers, most patients feel disconnected. But if the doctor says, "your cholesterol puts you at risk for heart disease, which could shorten your life," the patient connects the dots. Security governance must adopt the same principle: make risks business relevant, not just technical. Risk assessments can be qualitative, quantitative, or a combination. Qualitative assessments use categories such as high, medium, or low for likelihood and impact. They are easier to perform and require less data, making them suitable for smaller organizations or quick assessments. Quantitative assessments assign numerical values, such as estimating the probability of an event per year and the potential dollar loss. These methods provide richer analysis, but require more detailed data and assumptions. Many organizations blend both approaches, using qualitative ratings for broad portfolios and quantitative modeling for high-value assets. For learners, imagine assessing a car trip. A qualitative view is, "the weather looks risky, let's drive carefully." A quantitative approach is calculating a 20% chance of a $500 accident. Both perspectives have value, depending on context. Control mapping connects risks to the safeguards designed to address them. For example, the risk of phishing is mapped to awareness training, email filtering, and multi-factor authentication. Each risk in the register should clearly link to one or more controls, and governance should evaluate whether those controls are effective. Control effectiveness can be measured through audits, penetration tests, or monitoring. Without mapping, risks remain abstract, and organizations cannot demonstrate they are actively being managed. For learners, think of school safety. The risk of fire is mapped to alarms, drills, and sprinklers. Mapping makes risks visible and shows that mitigation efforts exist. In cybersecurity, mapping also highlights gaps. Risks without strong controls stand out as priorities for investment. Residual risk is the risk that remains after controls are applied. For example, even with antivirus software, awareness training, and patching, there is still a chance of malware infection. Governance requires residual risk to be calculated, documented, and presented to executives so they can decide whether to accept it. This calculation demonstrates transparency. Risks are never zero, but leaders can decide consciously whether what remains is tolerable. For learners, think of home insurance. Even after installing locks, alarms, and cameras, burglary risk is not eliminated. You accept the residual risk, but transfer some financially through insurance. Governance structures formalize this process, ensuring acceptance is deliberate, not accidental. Risk aggregation is another important governance task. Individual risks may look manageable, but when combined, they can overwhelm. For instance, one business unit may accept a moderate number of exceptions, but across the enterprise, those exceptions aggregate into systemic exposure. Governance committees review risks across portfolios, identifying patterns and concentration points. Aggregation helps organizations prioritize enterprise-wide issues rather than treating risks in silos. For learners, imagine a family budget. One person overspending by a little may not matter, but if everyone does it at once, the family faces financial crisis. Aggregating risks prevents the organization from being blindsided by cumulative effects. Risk communication relies on visuals and clarity to be effective. Dashboards, risk heat maps, and summary reports help leaders understand exposure at a glance. Dashboards may show open risk items, control effectiveness, and residual risk levels. Heat maps visualize likelihood and impact across categories, highlighting critical risks in red. Governance committees use these tools to make decisions about funding, prioritization, or acceptance. Without visuals, risk registers become dense spreadsheets that fail to resonate. For learners, think of weather reports. Charts and color-coded maps make storms and heat waves understandable at a glance. Risk communication requires the same clarity, turning complex data into actionable insight for decision-makers. Risk acceptance governance is vital for accountability. Policies should define who can accept what level of residual risk. For example, line managers may accept low risks, executives may accept medium risks, and the board must approve high or critical risks. Documentation ensures that acceptance is recorded, justified, and time-bound. Without governance, risks may be informally accepted without accountability, creating hidden exposure. For learners, think of safety waivers in sports. Coaches may allow players to take minor risks, but only parents or school boards can authorize serious ones. Risk acceptance must follow structured authority paths to preserve organizational accountability. Risk scenarios and stress tests help governance bodies explore extreme but plausible events. These scenarios are what-if exercises, such as asking, what if ransomware disables all manufacturing plants for 2 weeks? By walking through consequences and recovery paths, leaders understand vulnerabilities and plan contingencies. Stress tests provide insight beyond standard metrics, ensuring preparedness for rare but devastating risks. For learners, think of fire drills or earthquake simulations in schools. You may never face the exact scenario, but the practice ensures readiness. Governance uses scenarios to uncover hidden weaknesses and strengthen resilience before crises occur. Integrating incident trends and audit findings into the risk register ensures that governance is dynamic. Each incident reveals weaknesses, and each audit finding highlights controls that need improvement. Governance structures must feed this information back into the register, adjusting likelihoods, impacts, and treatments. Without integration, risk registers become static and disconnected from reality. For learners, think of revising study plans after every exam. Mistakes reveal where to focus next time. Risk registers require the same discipline, evolving continuously with lessons learned from incidents and assessments. Program health checks provide governance with a view of maturity. These checks include gap analyses against frameworks, assessments of process effectiveness, and roadmaps for improvement. By periodically evaluating the risk program itself, organizations ensure it evolves alongside threats and business needs. Without these checks, programs stagnate, relying on outdated practices. For learners, think of annual medical exams. Even if you feel healthy, tests may reveal gaps requiring attention. program health checks provide the same assurance for governance, highlighting weaknesses before they become systemic. Insurance and contractual risk transfer are also key strategies in treatment. While controls mitigate risks, not all exposures can be fully eliminated. Cyber insurance helps transfer the financial impact of breaches, while contracts can transfer liability to vendors when they fail to protect shared data. Governance ensures these tools are applied wisely, balancing cost with protection. For learners, think of renting an apartment. Insurance covers accidents like fire or theft, while contracts with the landlord define who is responsible for repairs. Risk transfer strategies ensure organizations are not left shouldering every loss directly. Ultimately, practical risk management is about combining clear registers, owner accountability, control measurement, and business-aligned reporting. Registers capture exposures, owners ensure accountability, controls reduce likelihood and impact, and reporting ensures leaders make informed decisions. None of these elements alone is sufficient. Together, they create a complete system. For learners, the key takeaway is simple. Risk management is not about eliminating all uncertainty, but about managing it deliberately. When governance ties risk programs to business outcomes, organizations can accept, mitigate, transfer, or avoid risks with clarity and ensure resilience in the face of inevitable change. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.